So you wanna be a picture book writer, then you gotta write picture books. And you're gonna need a bucket load of bright ideas for titles, plots, and hooks. If you're partial to prose or you're raring to rhyme, then repeat after me, it's a challenge, but I'm gonna tackle each story 1 month at a time with 12 by 12.
Okay, so here we go then. All right, so here's a map of the world, just to kind of give you a sense of where I am at the moment. It's very difficult to see Cyprus on that map because Cyprus is so very small, but it's kind of there in the armpit of the Mediterranean, very far away from where you are now and quite a distance from the UK as well, which is where I was born, of course. But at the moment, I'm in Cyprus. My family is Cypriot, and I've lived here for quite a few years now, even though I've gone back and forth. But just to give you a close-up of the island, this is what it looks like. And you'll notice that there are two different main colours on the island. So you've got this kind of reddish colour at the top and this yellowish colour at the bottom, which are the two different sides, and that very important green line that separates the two, which is what this story is about. So I won't give too much more background. I'll go into the story because I think that speaks for itself. This is The Fig Tree, a story about building friendship and peace in Cyprus. Written by me, Constantia Manoli, and illustrated by Leah Giles. Summer has arrived in Cyprus, bright and blazing and sizzling at the edges. On this small island, a lonely fig tree stands between two worlds. In the warmth of early summer, her branches burst into bundles of tiny buds, flowers that grow inward and blossom into figs. By autumn, by August, her figs are plump and purple and ready for picking, but no one comes. The old tree remembers fig-picking days from years before, when the two sides of her divided island were bound together. Friends gathered to collect her fruit while children played. Then they spread their patchwork blankets under her gauzy shade to share food and recipes, stories and songs until their shadows stretched long on the ground. Even though the friends spoke different languages, years of living side by side meant they understood each other well. They swapped and borrowed language until the new words became as worn and familiar as their own. Words like hade, mashallah, and majila, words that comforted and connected them. The old tree also remembers the burning hot days that came years later and changed everything. Stories spread like wildfire and new words passed between the old friends. Words like traitor and enemy, words that flamed and burned, pushing people apart. Trust was torn to tatters, friendships frayed, understanding was lost, and fighting broke out. Families stopped visiting the fig tree. When the fighting worsened and soldiers from other lands breached the island's shores, ranks closed in on either side. Stomping boots, shuddering tanks, and stuttering gunfire shook the tree and the island down to the roots. The people had no choice but to flee. You may have noticed this spread when the fight worsened and the soldiers from other lands breached the island shores. And I wanted to point this one out in particular because I'm sure there will be a question about illustration notes and the kind of direction of the illustration. Leah Giles has done an absolutely outstanding job of illustrating this book. I mean, it's far better than I could have dreamed or imagined. This particular spread is important because the picture at the bottom left of the page of the soldier holding the gun is actually based on a family photograph of my father. And the image of the parachutes with the soldiers coming down is a well-known image from the time where there was this sort of black and white photography. And I wanted to show you, again, because I'm sure there'll be a question about illustration notes, The thing that I shared with my editor and my editor shared with the illustrator was this Padlet. So I created this Padlet, which is basically an online pinboard. If you haven't used it, it's very easy to use and quite useful for this kind of situation. So there were extensive illustration notes on the manuscript itself, but I also shared this Padlet with her so that she could watch some documentaries, see some pictures, a couple of family photographs, and you'll see this one here is that photograph of my father as a soldier in 1974 when he was in the army. The army was mandatory, still is mandatory. So that's him when he was just a young man around the age of 18, and that ended up in the book as well. I think I also have the picture with the parachutes here. There it is. So this is another photograph here of the parachutes. And these are images that I've grown up with, the pictures of the Green Line itself, all these pictures of people holding up photographs of their loved ones who've gone missing, the peace marches, there are many of those. This is the ghost town of Varosi or Famagusta. You can see what the Green Line looks like and the buffer zone there in these pictures. And that brings me to the end of the presentation itself. I think I will stop screen sharing at this point. If you want to take a quick screenshot or a picture of that, go ahead. And I will stop the screen share. There we go.
Thank you so much. I got goosebumps all over again listening to you read this amazing story. I mean, what strikes me is how well you wrote about a very difficult topic. I say that, but of course, Cypriots on both sides of the line grow up with this, and many were born into it, right? Or lived through it. That's something that children experience. But I wonder, my question is, did you get any feedback on that or pushback on how to present that? Did that particular part go through any revisions?
It took a long time to get the manuscript to this point in the first place. Originally, it was far more softly presented, with the children at the center of the story from the beginning. And then through conversations with my editor, we decided to try telling the story from the tree's perspective, which I thought was a fantastic idea. And it worked because it gave me that sort of device to have something that's more neutral rather than to tell it from one side talking about the other side. In terms of the gun itself, that wasn't in the illustration notes, have a soldier holding a gun. It was on the Padlet, and I guess it's an image that struck the illustrator and she thought it would be a good idea to use it. And actually nobody really said much about it either way. It's just there. And I think the way that she's done it sort of with the other images together, I think it works really well.
What was behind your decision to gender the tree as female?
That's not something that was really a conscious decision, but I think when I write, my characters are usually female, naturally. There was a discussion about the two children, whether the two children should have been male and female, or kind of not clearly male or female or both or whatever. And I wanted the two children to be female, and I wanted the tree to be female, because I think we have a very different approach to conflict and a very different approach to peacemaking. And, you know, the way that we, as women, as mothers, as daughters, the way that we approach conflict and friendship and peacemaking is so much more nurturing and open. I think I'm obviously overgeneralizing, of course, but being a female, that felt more natural to me, and also to do with kind of, you know, Mother Nature and the earth and
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, is that typically the earth itself is referred to as more female because of nourishing and nurturing.
Do it together so never you fear. It's a handy little way to help you kick into gear. You're amazing, exciting. Look out, 'cause you're writing 12 by 12. 12 manuscripts. 12 by 12. 12 picture books. 12 by 12.